She asked me that I want to go. You tripping? I got a job to go to.
Sean.
I don't know. They asked me that I want to go. I told them I got a job to go to. Job you gonna go further.
It's
Hey, how are you? All right. I get hurt moving furniture. I ain't getting no work. No.
Hey Joe, man, don't talk like that. Nobody tell you about mine.
I get hurt at Sherman Lumber. They gonna take care of it. Yeah. Hey, Paul.
Hey Joe.
Huh?
But you know, I can
You
handle
built
it.
for it.
Huh?
You built for it. You built for it.
I don't know.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to JC's Recovery Sunday evening 8 p.m. meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, the Reborn group. Let's begin this meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer, please. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. My name is Drew, and I'm a grateful, recovering alcoholic and drug addict. Hey, everybody. Welcome. My home group is the Westside Men's Group, and this meeting, the Reborn group.
Nice.
I have a sponsor, and my sponsor has a sponsor. And it's a pleasure to be here, and it's an honor to be able to chair this meeting. And this is the preamble of Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Is this anyone's first ever meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, or first time at this meeting that would like to be recognized?
I've been here. I'm Taylor.
Taylor, I don't know if you've been here on a Sunday night, have you?
No, I have
Well,
not.
welcome, Taylor.
Thank you.
Have you attended this meeting?
I don't think on Sunday.
Okay, and again, introduce yourself.
My name is Sonny, and I'm an alcoholic.
All right. Okay, and I've asked a friend to come and tell us about the problem, more about alcoholism. The most yet.
Okay. I'm Taylor. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Taylor.
This is more about alcoholism. Most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. No person likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove we could not drink like other people. The idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his drinking is a great obsession of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it to the gates of insanity or death. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people, or presently may be, has to be smashed. We alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. We know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. All of us felt at times we were regaining control, but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control, which led in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. We are convinced to a man that alcoholics of our type are in the grip of progressive illness. Over any considerable period, we get worse, not better. We are like men who have lost their legs. They never grow new ones. Neither does there appear to be any kind of treatment which will make alcoholics of our kind like other men. We have tried every imaginable remedy. In some instances, There have been brief recovery, followed always by still worse relapse. Physicians who are familiar with alcoholism agree that there is no such thing as making a normal drinker out of an alcoholic. Science may one day accomplish this,
But it
has
hasn't
not
done so yet.
Thanks for letting me read.
Thank you. And now I've asked another friend named Joe to come tell us about the solution, how it works.
Good evening, my name is Joe, recovering alcoholic.
Joe.
This is how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who have thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They're such unfortunates. They're not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They're naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demand rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our story discloses in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to anything to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. And some of these we bought. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnest of our command, we beg you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to old ideas and results as real until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, and powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures avail us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as the program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn the will of our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, we made a searching and furious moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all the defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we've harmed, became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so will injure them or others. 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admit it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, as we understood him. Pray only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry it out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to the alcoholic and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaim, "What an order, I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us is able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We're not saints. The point is that we will grow along spiritual lives. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, chapter 2, the agnostic, and our personal adventure before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholics and could not manage our own lives. B, had probably no human power to relieve our alcoholism. C, that God could and would if we
Thank you, Joe. Okay. Hey, man. It's awesome. So our speaker tonight is someone that I get to share Stevie's small group with at Lighthouse Recovery every Monday evening. I've gotten to know him a little bit. His name is Ray, and he has 4 decades plus of sobriety, which is in 20 years. Literally, it's that difficult. So if this gentleman's got 40 years, I don't know what the numbers are, but it's a big deal. So Ray, come and tell us how you did it, man. Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay. My name's Ray. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Ray.
And I haven't found it necessary to take a drink since 1981, July 21st.
Wow.
I was only 6 years old at the time. Not bad.
Sounds good.
Where do I start? Where I started. I was basically raised right here in Hollywood, Florida. I moved down here at the age of, I think it was 9 or 10, in a little area called Lake Forest. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Lake Forest. It's known now as, what's it called now? Anyway, it's on County Line Road between 441 and 95, somewhere in that area. Anyway, I'm the oldest of 6. I come from a family that was total dysfunction. My mother was what I called a periodic. My father had died when I was 8, so I didn't have much knowing about my father, but my mother married a couple of guys over time. And my stepfathers were all full-blown alcoholics, dope fiends or some other type of degenerate. And that was my life growing up. I was surrounded around booze and drugs and everything else. And I swore that I would never touch anything, because that's not who we were. I said this at the age of 10 when I moved to South Florida. By the time I was 12, I was already smoking pot and drinking. Not a lot, just a little bit. You know, hiding or sneaking from the booze from my parents mostly, or I should say from my mom and my stepfathers. And one thing I can remember is I never drank because I liked the taste. Never could I couldn't stomach the taste. I drank for the feeling. You know, I've heard people over time, since I've been around the room, about you know they started drinking when they were in their early 20s or whatever, and they gradually built up, and then when they turned 40s and 50s, they became their alcoholic. Well, I don't know. I started drinking. I drank, like I said, alcoholically, I guess, from the very beginning. I drank to get a buzz. I drank to feel better. I drank to forget about what was going on around me, along with a lot of the dry goods that you come across. I know back then it was still an early phase. There wasn't a whole lot of, I should say, I wasn't familiar with a whole lot of dry goods. It's easier to be more familiar with alcohol. With like I said, my stepfathers, my mother, and those friends of hers, they would come around the house, and my mother always threw all kinds of parties, always throwing parties since I can remember. We were real little, even wasn't interested in getting drunk. I wasn't interested in using or any of that until I got into my teenage years. I had a best friend who really loved his alcohol, and that's who basically introduced me to drinking, to smoking pot, popping a couple of pills here and there. Not much, but mostly drinking and smoking pot and partying. I did pretty much on a regular basis. The older I got, the more it started increasing. There was a point at time in our little neighborhood that if there was a new drug that came out, or that somebody had stolen from the drugstore or their parents or whatnot, and nobody knew what the effects were, they'd come to Ray's house, knock on my door, and ask me to try it out. Let's see how it is. And if Ray ended up okay, then it was good for distribution. And that was good for a while because, you know, I didn't mind being a guinea pig because I had no self-esteem. I definitely had no self-worth. And if it was free and it was going to get me buzzed, why not? I remember sitting on the corners, drinking Strawberry Hill at 13 years old, 12, 13, 14 years old. We used to go to, there used to be a little store on the corner of County Line Road and 441. It was called Butoto. And there was a guy in there that would sell us anything and everything we wanted. For a cost, of course, but it didn't matter. We pitched in our pennies together and we'd get our beer and our Strawberry Hill and our Boone's Farm, whatever it was. And even when we got desperate, MD 2020 came in. And some of you don't know that. The older guys may know what that is, but I don't know some of the younger guys. I don't know if they make MD anymore. That was Mold and David 2020. That was Rabbi's drink. Anyway, needless to say, my life at that point didn't go very well. I was not very productive in school. I was very rebellious. I was very anti-establishment. So when I hit the 10th grade, I became, well, actually way before I hit the 10th grade, I was a big troublemaker. Constantly doing drugs, constantly speaking, constantly drinking, always in the parking lot, never in class. Until finally I got caught and I got expelled, and this went on for, I got expelled two years in a row. And on my second year was the year that I had turned 17, and it was amazed that I hadn't died yet. I had OD'd maybe 3-4 times, but that wasn't the big thing. I decided at one point that, actually there was 3 of us. There was my 2 buddies, my 2 best friends, and we decided that we were going to straighten our lives out. We were going to do something serious, so we ended up joining the Army. And one of my biggest regrets was joining the Army. But when I got there, I straightened out for about 60 days. And then my brother was able to get a letter to me that had a couple of joints in it, and I was able to get high with that. And then this was in 2 months, and after 2 months of being in basic training and whatnot, you got permission to go to the PX, which is their basically on-post store, and you were allowed to drink. And that was nice. I was 17 years old and was able to drink legally. And I was off to the races. I just got involved with a lot of guys that were the same as I was, came from the same basic background. I'll tell you how it is. When I came in and I got my hair cut, you know, they bring you in and shave you down. I had a red stripe going straight down the center of my hair because my hair was parted and it was down over here somewhere. I was, I guess, maybe call it a hippie. I don't know. I was too young to really be a hippie. That's what the categorization was. Anyway, I hooked up with a bunch of guys that were just like me, and we convinced them doing a lot more partying. And that's just basically what we did. We partied, and I was non-functional. Needless to say, I had a bad trip one night, and I decided I didn't want to be in the Army anymore. Grant you, let me tell you, this is during the Vietnam War. So I packed a little bag with just some change of clothes, my stash, and I went down to the local bus station, I grabbed the bus ticket, and I took off. And at this point in my life, I went to visit another friend of mine who was actually an Army buddy, who was on home on leave, and he was stationed in Alabama. And we went to there, and I hung out with him for a little bit. And anyway, I ended up, the reason I bring this point up is I ended up coming back home and coming back to Florida And things got crazy. The friends that I was hanging around with, they were doing things that I wasn't so familiar with. They would always be going in the back room, and I couldn't understand why they going in the back room. And I asked, I said, why you guys going in the back room? He said, oh, we're doing something. We don't want to be bothered. We're not going to do this right. I said, but I mean, I want to know. I said, all right, we'll bring you in. I came in the back, and they were in there shooting dope. At least that's what I thought they were doing. They had needles, and they were syringes, and they were doing that. And it wasn't so much dope; it was other stuff. And I said, I want to try. And they kept saying, no, man, you can't try. Not the way that you like things. You can't try this. You're going to be a junkie. I said, no, I won't. Please, please, please. Just let me try. I found out later on they were barbiturates. I don't think you're familiar with those, but it's like a very super strong sedative, or what we would call hypnotics. Anyway, I tried that, and oh, did I fall in love. The way it was able to enhance my drinking and my partying like nothing else ever could. I became so uninhibited, so, I don't know, wasteful, basically. I was able to enjoy myself sitting in a corner, sucking my toes, and not worrying about anything or anybody else. Anyway, long story short, I did that for a short period of time. My mother started crying, wanted me to turn myself back in. I mean, because I was still AWOL from the Army. I'd already gone 2 months. Now I'm classified as a deserter. And what am I going to do? So, like I said, my mom's begging me to go, and I ended up turning myself in and going back into the Army, going into the stockade. And while I was in the stockade, they gave me a choice, a piece of paper saying that it's called a Chapter 10, saying that I felt that I was a threat to the United States government. And basically what I just was an undesirable discharge. And I didn't care. I signed it. I said, just get me out of this thing. And that's what I did. Got out and made my way back to South Florida, tried to find my friends again, couldn't find them. So I ended up hanging out at my mom's house, and in the process of finding out, living in my mom's house, that my younger brothers, while I was out and about for the last year or so, had constructed a little pharmaceutical business. And I thought I would partake in some of that. And I did, and it wasn't a very good situation. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Quaaludes. The older people probably are, but that was the family, that was the business that they were going into. And so I said, well, I could do this, except I broke the first rule. Never use your own product. And needless to say, my family did not shine very well at that for me anyway. So he basically told me to get out of their house and get away. And anyway, one of the guys that I had traveled around with, I ran into when I got back to Florida, and he had gotten me a job at a really nice hotel on Miami Beach. And I was a bellman, and I was cut my hair, got a nice clean cut, and had a really nice job, making good tip money, and meeting a lot of crazy other people. And these guys, when you work in the hotel industry, the restaurant industry, everybody parties. And my drinking career took off like a madman. I don't know, it was just drinking, partying. Got to the point that I met this woman. I'm 21 now at this point in time, and I met this woman. She's 36 years old, and we started hanging out. And she's a degenerate gambler and an alcoholic. And her and I we were like water and oil. We just didn't mix, but we liked to do the dressing, And hazy, I just remember spending a lot of time in the bar, spending a lot of time passed out, spending a lot of time in the back of squad cars, a lot of time just really screwing up. I had never gotten a career. I never gotten training for any kind of job thing other than I washed dishes, short order cook. Like I said, I was a bellman. All I didn't really have to use my head, mainly my body. Anyway, my partying went to the point, it just went to the next level at that point. I don't know, I was blacking out, constantly in a blackout, waking up in the middle of the street, waking up in the middle of the alleys, waking up in the back of police, actually coming to in the back of police cars. And I didn't like it. I knew my ex, so this is what I did. I gave her a call one day and I said, I want some help. Not really, I didn't want any help. I just didn't have a place to go. My mother threw me out of the house. My brothers didn't want nothing to do with me. None of my friends wanted anything to do with me. Because I would, whatever, I would steal the drugs, steal the booze, whatever the case may be. But I wouldn't steal their cash, I wouldn't steal their property. I never got to that point of pawning stuff. They did, but I didn't. I thought I was better than that. Needless to say, several years went by. I finally got a hold of this woman. She said, she came and a couple of guys, they picked me up, they brought me down to a detox in Miami. Put me in the detox, and the night that they stuck me in there, they shot me full of Valium, and they asked me a bunch of questions, and I don't know what it was. I went to sleep. I got up the next morning, and they asked me questions about how long you've been drinking, how much you've been drinking, and I told them, I don't drink. I'm not a drinker. I'm a dope fiend. I'm a dope fiend. I like doing drugs. Oh, he says, we're not. This is not for you. This is an alcohol detox. We help you. But here's a list of drug treatment centers that you can go to and see if you can get in. And so I took the list and I left and I started walking down Miami trying to find these places. I ended up going to a place called the Village. You guys have little jobs here at the treatment center, but I had one that was overnight. It was patrolling the perimeter. Anyway, so when you're up all night, you get to sleep during the day. But we had a thing where, we didn't have an inside barber shop, so we would collect everybody once a week and take them out to get a haircut. I put my name down on the list, and when I woke up that afternoon, everybody had gone to get their haircuts, and they didn't wake me up. So being the mature rat that I was, I said, screw this, I'm out of here. I left, and I went back to see with my mother again, and it just right back. I mean, it was like I was there. I ran into my best friend. He had an 8-ball, and we went and started. We did that. We did the 8-ball, and then we did another 8-ball, and then we did another 8-ball, and then we ended up at some club. I don't remember the name of the club. I just know it was out on 103rd Street. And almost died. I got into a car accident. I was driving. At least that's what I remember. I think I was driving. Anyway. Just a number of things were happening. Finally, I got tired again. I guess I don't know, desperate. I wanted something more to my life. I knew there was something more. I saw her, my ex, how she was growing. And I had contact with her off and on through the next couple of years. And I gave her a call again and asked her if I could have some help. She came and picked me up, brought me to her house, or to her apartment, gave me a shower, gave me clothes, let me sleep on her couch. She dragged me around to a couple of AA meetings, and club room named Little River. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Little River, but at the time it was on 79th Street on Biscayne Boulevard on top of McDonald's. And I remember her bringing me up to the meeting real early in the mornings, and I would sit in that club room and shake, and want to get cigarettes, get something to eat. Things started going better. I met a guy, ended up getting moving in, having a roommate. I should say he had an efficiency. He was working day or nights, and I was working days, so we never saw each other, and it worked out really well. And she dragged me around for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 weeks, and I heard through the grapevine that she was telling people that I wasn't ready, that I was bullshitting her, that I just wanted someplace to stay, or just, the normal things. And she basically, and that's when she threw me out. Said, when she threw me out, these are the rumors that I heard. So I copped an attitude, and I said, I'll show you. I haven't had a drink since then. But that's not my whole story. I started getting involved with the other fellowship. Some of you might be familiar with Narcotics Anonymous. And because I didn't believe I was an alcoholic, because I didn't drink like my buddies did. At least I didn't think I didn't drink. Because they always called me a wuss, a wimp, candy ass, because I couldn't drink like they could. So I didn't think I was an alcoholic, because I wasn't like my stepfathers. I might have been like my mom. Like I said, my mom was a periodic. She would go weeks binging, and then she would go years and wouldn't touch the stuff. So I said, well, maybe I'm like my mother. Nope. Anyway, I started going to Narcotics Anonymous, and I was sitting at this meeting one Friday night, and the druggie buggy pulled up, and all these people come walking in. This is the first time I ever seen anybody coming out of treatment, because when I was in that treatment center, they didn't allow you to go to outside anything. So these people are all coming in, and I'm sitting back, I'm in this one sitting, I'm looking, and this girl comes in. She's got on the tightest pair of white jeans that anybody could possibly, I don't know how the hell she got into it. And her hair was almost as short as Drew's, but not quite. Pitch blonde, and gorgeous. Anyway, she came over, she sat down, she came next to me, she sat down next to me, and she started talking to me in Spanish. I looked at her and I said, I only speak English, I don't know where you come from. She said, oh, I'm sorry, I must have looked Spanish at the time, I don't know. And we talked a little bit, not much. Fast forward to the next week, deja vu. It's almost identical. I'm sitting in the exact same place I was the week before. Here comes the druggie buggy, here comes the people in, and it's the same girl comes in, almost identically dressed the same way she was, walks right over to me, sits down next to me and starts talking to me in Spanish. I said, I told you last week. I said, I don't remember a lot, I'm pretty fried, but I said, I told you last week I don't speak Spanish. Reason why I mentioned this is because she's my wife today. We're married for 40 years. I don't know, after 40 years, I lost that. We're married. And we got involved with Narcotics Anonymous, very big time. I say we, because it couldn't have been me. I was a total introvert. I still am. Very insecure, very no self-esteem, no self-worth. by my wife, but she wasn't my wife then, but at the time, my girlfriend. She could walk into a room and she'd know everybody's name, age, occupation, where they're from, who their parents are, their siblings, what they do for a living, how much money they got in the bank. You know, me, I couldn't do anything. I was a wallflower. I couldn't. He asked me to come up and introduce myself. I started shaking and I just couldn't do it. And, this went on for quite a while. Eventually, we got married, had the first NA wedding in Dade County at that time. It was in North Dade. Anybody and everybody who was involved in Narcotics Anonymous in North Dade came to the wedding. It was at her sponsor's house, in her backyard, and it was nice. Anyway, where do I want to go with this? Like I said, I got involved pretty much so with Narcotics Anonymous. Got involved with service, got involved with helping with groups. Never doing any of the creating myself, but always with the helping. I felt led to be a helper. I've always been a helper. And that's what it was. She got pregnant, had her first child. 5 years later, she got pregnant again and got a second child. I had gotten a job in a printing company. Started off working loading pins on the back of a pin machine, a pin printer. And ended up becoming the general manager. Worked for that company for 21 years. Raised the kids. Needless to say, somewhere in that mid-time, I started becoming very discouraged with the 12-step fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous. So I started going to church. I was a believer before I got clean and sober, but I was a backsliding believer. And so I said, well, maybe this will help me. So I went to a little church in Fort Lauderdale called Calvary Chapel. When I mean by little, it was little. Then it was only 750 people. I don't think it's so little anymore. But anyway, I got involved with Calvary, and I got involved with their addictions ministry, and I got involved with the biblical counseling ministries, and that became my life for a little bit. I kept going to meetings every once in a while, but every time I would go to a meeting, it'd be like it wasn't the same fellowship. It wasn't the same meeting. They were trying to change the name of God. They were trying to keep God out of everything. And I wasn't able to deal with that very well. So I just kept staying with Calvary. And with the work, I got promoted. I guess I shouldn't say promoted. I was already a manager, then a general manager. Life became real busy. Church became second by the wayside. My meetings became by the wayside. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't drugging. I wasn't going to church. I don't know. I became very depressed. I've also found out that through the years that I dealt with, once I came off all the drugs and alcohol, I found out that I deal with depression. So throughout the time I struggled in Narcotics Anonymous back in the day. They frowned upon any kind of medication. And so I used to fight not taking any kind of medication. But one of my pastors in Calvary had a problem with one of his daughters. on medication, and we sat down, and it worked for her. And he sat down with me and he says, you know, Ray, he says, maybe you should try it. It might help. So I went and I tried it and I did it. And anyway, I did the whole gambit, and needless to say, I didn't like it. And I don't know, my mental health wasn't always that, did not stay that well. I don't know. I had gotten several jobs in different treatment centers. I lost my job at the printing place. After 21 years, I lost my job because I just wasn't taking the nonsense from the other. They hired a guy from New York that came in that had all this business experience. I didn't have it. I didn't have a degree. I didn't even have a high school education other than my GED. Basically, with the resentments, I guess my work performance went down or whatnot, and they let me go. And that was it. They let me go. Anyway, it's all blurred from one point to the other. I got a job in a treatment center in 2008. It was a good place called Milestones Recovery. It was an eating disorder treatment center. It was a different place. I've never worked with eating disorder people before. But they started having me do groups there. Step groups. And I would come in and I would do my version of 1, 2, 3 in sponsorship. That was a nice experience. But anyway, after being there about 10 years, there's a whole bunch of political stuff that went on. Not, world political, but political in the business. And got into a new owner and whatnot, and the old staff was let go of, and the new staff came in. So there I left myself. At this point in time, getting to that point, I was turning 65. Oh no, I was turning 62. That's what it was. And I was getting old, and I didn't know what I was going to do. That's all I had done. I was physically, I wasn't in shape anymore. I really couldn't do anything physical, at least I thought I couldn't. And so I started going to work, trying to go to work. But I couldn't really find a job. Pandemic hit. I ended up having one job for a little while, and I ended up hurting my back. In the process of hurting my back, it hurt really bad, and I ended up going into the hospital to have surgery. And by doing this was back in between 2018 and 2019. I got out of the hospital, recovering really well, things were going good. I wasn't feeling any pain. Because of a pain medication, that's why I wasn't feeling any pain. And I was taking it as prescribed. Everything was going good. I was doing it all. The wife was holding the medication, giving me what I was supposed to be doing. Everything was going properly. I wasn't confusing nothing. And my thinking started changing. The depression kicked in really, really big time. I'm isolated. I'm not very computer savvy. I knew about Zoom, but I didn't know what. Do I want to kill myself or do I want to go drink? And no sooner, it was maybe a minute and a half, my phone rings. And it's a guy that was in treatment at the last treatment center that I was working at. We had become friends afterwards. And you don't know why. He said, Ray, you want to go to a meeting? Come on, let's go to a meeting. something of that nature. And I said, all right, whatever. Second best decision I think I made in my life. Coors Light? They didn't have that when I stopped drinking. Anyway. So I came to a meeting. It was at the KISS group, the West Broward Club. Such a great group. I go there every day now that I can. 12:30 in the afternoon. Like I said, this was about a little over a year, about a year and a half ago. I was ready, like I said, to kill myself. But I know suicide was not the answer. And I thought that God had abandoned me. But when I started coming to meetings again, this time to the AA fellowship, and I started hearing things that I didn't hear 30 years ago, 40 years ago, or even 20 years ago. The things that I was hearing at an AA meeting, I used to hear at CR meetings. I'm going to CR a little bit before the pandemic. Not too much, just a little. And it felt good. I started getting introduced to speakers that had more of a Christian and a God message than some of the pastors that I'd studied under over years in Calvary. And I said, this is great. And my spirit started to be renewed. And I started to get enthusiastic again. I don't know, I met, like I said, step groups, 12-step meetings, step studies. And all these guys and the speakers, I never heard them, and they were all talking strongly about what God and this fellowship, and that it was designed to bring you closer to God. And it was like I never heard that stuff in that other fellowship. And it's just been 180-degree turn from a year ago. Basically, I can times a minute. One thing I've learned, my powerlessness, when I admit that I'm powerless over alcohol, that was a stronghold in my system. And that's one of the only things besides the Spirit of God that kept me from drinking, and kept me from putting that bullet in my head. I'm glad that my God was more faithful to me than I was to him, and brought me back around. And I know that what I've gone through and have not had to drink behind it, and have not had to kill myself behind it, that anybody can do. And I've seen death, I've seen birth, I've seen catastrophes. I mean, from somebody who had nothing, and I literally mean I had nothing. I have everything today. My boys are grown, they're grown men. I'm proud, very proud. They're college graduates. First ones in our family, college graduates. I'm talking about myself, my wife, whatever. Anyway. If you do anything, do yourself that favor. Put the ego down. Don't beat yourself up. If I can do it, you can do it too.
Thank you so much. I heard humility and honesty, a life that was spinning out of control, and then ultimately years and years of sobriety, but at that place that I've heard about from old timers before,
Yes.
which is you're sober, but you're miserable, and the depression and all of that. That scares me, I'm not gonna lie. Last thing I ran the drugs and alcohol for decades, and this is my 5th attempt at sobriety, and right now I'm for the most part joyful, and I'm doing this one day at a time with optimism, and thank God through faith in Jesus, and thank God because of His grace I'm a sober man today, one day at a time. But I'm not so much worried about the obsession coming back per se, which has been lifted one day at a time, as much as being miserable in sobriety. I don't want that to happen, because that's a bad place to be. When drinking isn't the solution, but living isn't a solution either. That's a scary place to be. And thank God you came out of that, and now you're joyful again, and you have this desire to live and to be a righteous man through grace. Thank God. We have time for a couple of shares. Anybody wants to share?
Good evening, family. I'm Sean, grateful for believing Jesus Christ, and I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Sean.
I'd like to thank you, Ray. Obviously, I've sat in some small groups with you on Monday night. You always got positive information for myself and everybody around. Story's very similar, dysfunctional family, degenerate alcoholics, gamblers, criminals, whatever. I too was in the military. My drinking really took off because first sergeant was like, you can die for your country, you can drink as long as you stay in the barracks, jump out of planes, drunk, all of that. Anyway, what I want to speak about is what this program has done for me. I suggest you get plugged in, because I come here tonight with a very heavy heart. Young man, 46 years old like myself, I grew up from the womb. We got our first whoopings together, watched my first son be born, I watched his. We went home last night. But the reason I bring that up is because this program, now I'm talking about I was a broken man last night, but it's people in this community that seen me and knew I was hurting, and they reached out. And I get that from involving myself in this program, and I had tools from doing the 12 steps to know that I did not need to be alone. And I called people, and I spoke to people, and I reached out to people, and fall back and give everything to God, and me being plugged in here allows me to operate out there when life happens. Because life is going to happen regardless. And if you here, you're in a good place. And I got up this morning, I went to church, and I come to a meeting tonight because I need to be in a meeting. And get plugged in. Honestly, this program will help you save your life. Because a couple years ago, as a man sitting here and know, a couple years ago, I wouldn't be able to fathom this, the way I'm just be sober, get through something like this. But you know what? It's a better day. We got a great God, man. So I'm telling you, get plugged in. Get plugged in. Life is going to happen regardless, whether you're sober, drunk, whatever. But I know one thing, I can get through life today better sober than I can being drunk or high or whatever. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Anybody else want to share? Thank you, Sean. That was beautiful, man. I want to say to those that knew her, both these ladies, I want to say that my thoughts and prayers go out to the family of Barbie Beck, who I knew from the 12-Step House, who was super cool, and I saw her get her two-year medallion around 4 years ago. I didn't know her. First time I ever met her, she spoke. It was a 2-year medallion. I remember this. Around 4, maybe 5 years ago. 12-Step House. The place was packed, and she spoke. She was so articulate. She spoke beautifully. I went up to her after the meeting and said how moved I was from her share. And she died a couple of days ago with 3 little kids. Very, very sad. And Raquel, who was someone that people that have been at JC's a while used to come around here, all about God. She would always sit right there with her dog Jay. There's two dogs that grew up at JC, C and J. Jerry's got C now, and Jay was adopted by this girl Raquel. She lived a block away. She was always around. She didn't do a lot of meetings, and I remember talking to her about that several times. Sean, like 4 years ago, saying, "Hey, girl," and she wasn't even doing all about God that much. I warned her. I said, "This is not a good." And I knew she had been homeless and a very bad alcoholic. And I said, "Girl, I could never do this without being plugged in, as you just shared." And she didn't heed the warning, and she died a couple of days ago. And from I don't think she was even 45 years old, and her liver gave out. Pure alcoholic. It's incredible. But I want to just again say my thoughts and prayers go out to the family of Barbie, Beck, and Raquel. Sam, come and do the chips, please. We're missing some colors. Just
Alright, I'm Sam. I'm a recovering alcoholic and an addict. And
Sam.
Great, thank you for your message. That was really powerful. And so in AA we have a chip system to denote clean time, and okay, so we don't have any white chips, right? So anybody want to give up the fight and pretend to pick up a white? No? Alright. So purple for 30 days, or wait. Red for 30 days?
Keep coming back.
Green for 60 days?
All right. Hi, Robert.
Blue for 90 days?
Keep coming back.
Purple for 6 months?
Keep coming back.
Back to green for 9 months? Alright,
Keep
so
coming back.
suggestions that were given to me are get a sponsor, work your steps, pray, and just don't pick up.
Thank you, Sam. Good job. I want to thank everyone for attending. I want to thank my readers, Sam for doing the chips, and most importantly, Ray for being our speaker. This is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He is the principal, we are his agents. He is the father, and we are his children. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we passed to freedom. When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all-powerful, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. We were reborn. Would everyone stand, please? Ray, would you take us out with the Lord's Prayer, please?
Ready? Who woke us up this morning?
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Stay.
Thank you, Drew.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh,
Right, as you got a kiss.
Huh?
Thank you, brother.
Tony?
Yeah, well, Tony's my buddy.
Yeah, he's really good friend of mine too. I talked to him today. Yeah.
I can't go. I didn't go to my parents.
Really? Oh Lord, you